Hey guys, welcome to another exciting episode of Footy Banter and Insights. Today we are discussing a very interesting topic. Uh, we are going to discuss the departure of Txiki Begiristain from Manchester City, and we are also going to discuss his time at the club and what it has meant for Manchester City on the whole and for the Premier League as well. So I think I'll begin with Ishan, who's started following football recently and who has a lot more information about the latest happenings.
No. So yes, when I read about this news, I thought that it's a big shift of power at Manchester City. I think Pep first was signed by him. He was associated with Pep before at Barcelona, and they had a good relationship back then. And then after that, they did wonders at Man City. We all know of all the big players that they have signed. I think he has done a fabulous job. We'll go into detail soon, but I think Chiki has been a guy who was supposed to leave when he was 55. Then, because of the good results that they followed, he extended it by 5 years, and now he's 60, and now he's planning to take a step back for a year or so. And but as per Romano, his plan is always to be involved in football, so we might see him in some other capacity soon after a year or so. But I believe this puts a serious doubt of Pep's future at Manchester City. As per Romano, it's Pep's choice, which is finally going to decide what's going to happen. But Cheeky leaving, which, like, I think every manager and every player has a comfort zone, right? Like how they want to play, how they want to, backroom staff, everyone has a comfort zone. Now, a change in sporting director is a big change for a manager who's been there for like 7 to 8 seasons now, I think so. So I don't know how it's going to go ahead, but it's definitely a big change for sure for Manchester City, for Pep, for all the fans, and they have signed a new sporting director in by the name of Hugo Viana, who was an ex-player, a Portuguese player and Newcastle player. So he was a sporting director at Sporting Lisbon, and now he is coming to Manchester City. He is known for all the great signings that he has done off lately of Ousmane Diamond, the centre back at highly rated centre back at Sporting. Victor Gyökeres again was his signing. So two or three marquee signing he has pulled off at Sporting, and he has a good track record. But let's see how he translates that performance into a big club like Manchester City, where the expectations and the scale is much bigger than a club like a Sporting Lisbon, because Sporting Lisbon, I think it's a breeding ground for bigger clubs to come and pick talents. And the revenue model is very different from a club like Manchester City, where they need bigger stars and want to challenge for serious European trophies. So it's going to be challenging, but I think they have picked a guy who has proven pedigree, although at a smaller level. But let's see, let's see what happens.
So this actually opens up the question again whether Pep might leave at the end of the season,
Yes,
right? Because his contract is ending at the end of the season.
yes,
Now with the sporting director leaving as well and him having such a good relationship with him, a lot of people are speculating that even Pep might leave at the end of the season.
yeah.
So it's interesting times at City over there. Let's see how they manage this transition from this winning formula. It'll be a very interesting time for Premier League as well
Yes.
because
I can see Varun's smile at the turmoil which can face Manchester City as an Arsenal fan.
no, I mean, see, ideally would love that other teams could compete at the level that City is playing, but I think the way they are run on and off the pitch, it is, I think, significantly better than any other team. Right? Arsenal are trying to mimic that, but again, I think the gulf is too big for us to kind of cover. So I think Man City, Pep leaving and the current sporting director leaving can actually give chance to a lot of other clubs to kind of
Yeah.
come back in the title race in the forthcoming seasons.
Another thing we are missing is that even KDB's contract is expiring this season. So if Txiki leaves and then Pep leaves, there's a big domino that will follow City, and then there will be too many changes happening too fast for City. So it will be a really challenging time. Even Haaland can be, I don't know if some big club like Barcelona, for example, manages some money from the Nike deal, or Camp Nou is it is under renovation. But if they can manage revenue somehow and get a big star like Haaland, then Haaland versus Mbappe rivalry also will be big. And I don't know if it will be a big domino that effect which will come into play, I believe.
I think so. One more uncertainty is around the 115 charges, right? This season, they're also expected to be a final decision on that. So all this probably will also coincide, and everything will have an effect. Finally,
Yes.
where we end up at the end of the summer is going to be very tricky.
Yes.
But
Yes.
one thing with City is their owners are the perfect owners. Like they have the ambition and they have the competence also. If they have the desire to get the right guy, and they have the ambition and the resources to do it. So unless and until this 115 charges knock them down, I think so they'll figure a way out to continue. Maybe for a season or two, there will be chances for other club, but they will be there or thereabouts
Yes.
soon.
And the good thing is, this Hugo Viana guy is going to spend 6 months with Txiki Begiristain as a move of transition. Like, that's the right thing to do, which we rarely see. Like, rarely among the other clubs, we see sporting directors being sacked and their contracts being terminated, and new guy comes in fresh. But I think to carry out the legacy in a smooth way, I think this 6 months of time is also going to be helpful for City.
So I'll share a couple of, let's say, examples from the past. So Barcelona under Pep were the best team in the world. They beat United twice in the Champions League. And when it became clear that Pep was going to leave Barcelona, Sir Alex was looking for a replacement. And he actually met Pep in Los Angeles. And he had a direct discussion with him, asking him to be a part of Manchester United Football Club. At that time, he decided to go to Bayern Munich. And at that juncture, that is when I think Txiki took over at Manchester City as their sporting director. And the relationship between Txiki and Pep was so close that when Pep decided to move, I think that relationship played the biggest role in him choosing Manchester City. So, like off the bat, I'm very, very sure that if Txiki was not part of the City hierarchy, there was no way Pep would have signed for City instead of any other Premier League team at the time. Because I remember Chelsea were highly linked to him, United were highly linked to him. Every big Premier League club wanted Pep in their ranks. So I think he played a major role in him coming along. Number two, again, if I look at a parallel, David Gill and Manchester United were synonymous along with Sir Alex Ferguson. So when Sir Alex and David Gill left around about the same time, it left a huge gap in the hierarchy. And I think something similar to that can happen here. So, like, honestly, I don't know much about Hugo Viana's off-field expertise. As a player, he was not very, very good. He was in the Portuguese national team. He played for Newcastle, but he wasn't one of the best players at that juncture. And even in the football backend, I think this is the first time I have heard his name in such high regard, considering that he has moved from Sporting Lisbon to Manchester City. So, how he will adapt to this big city role and how they will kind of make the structure around him will be crucial. And in case Pep leaves, and like Rahul also mentioned the charges, in case that comes into play, the next manager who comes in will be a Viana manager because he will have to work very closely with Hugo Viana. So there is a lot of back-end uncertainty, and although the structure is brilliant at City, like Varun also mentioned, but when you have a cult figure like Pep, if he leaves, and you have someone who has basically organized the back end like Txiki, he leaves, suddenly these holes become very difficult to kind of replace overnight. So it will be very interesting to see from an administrative perspective, both on and off the field, how things evolve. I don't see too many big changes happening in terms of, let's say, a Haaland leaving or let's say, any of their new stars leaving. In fact, Ruben Diaz may get a bigger role under this sort of a hierarchy. But it's very interesting for sure. And good for Arsenal because I think they are the closest to City at this moment in time. And very good for United because this gives United a chance to pluck a few other City high-ranking officials in their squad.
So, just a background about quick point about Hugo Vienna. Sporting has won 2 league titles under him, which is 2021 and 2024, the recent one. And like once you win a league title with a team like Sporting, how vultures surround the team and kind of take away all the good players and kind of from the team, right? And then rebuilding that team again and again, winning in 2024, it's not a bad, like it's a very good thing that he has achieved over there. With also Porto and Benfica being very strong at the same time. So I think he's done well at Sporting. Also, he managed the sales of player like Bruno to United. So, and then rebuilding the team after that, right? Like, who was a star figure at Sporting at that point. So I think his record at Sporting in general has been very good. Playing career, as you mentioned, like wasn't any noteworthy at all. But I think in the brief stint as a sporting director of 6 years, I think he's done reasonably well over there. Of course, Man City and Premier League is a different ball game altogether. So let's see, it will be interesting. But I'm sure the kind of research that the Man City team does in appointing these figures is very, very extensive. So they would have seen something in him before deciding him to succeed from like next year. So let's see, interesting time. Coming back to Txiki, I've never seen him at least at Man City, if I remember correctly. It's been 12 years, right? He joined in 2012. And in the last 12 years, I don't remember a high-profile signing that he did that didn't work out or was a complete flop. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, guys. If you guys know any signing that he did, even our viewers, like if you guys know like any signing that he did, high-profile signing where he paid like 70 million plus or 60 million plus and went like a complete flop, I would love to know because I don't remember any such signing on the top of my head.
I think so.
Did he spend 70 million plus on any
I don't think so. Even Grealish you can call a success. But it's just the fact that the City team is performing so well that certain signings we just don't consider it. Agar that Grealish performance was happening in a Man United shirt, he would be slated because obviously the team is not covering him up.
Yeah.
But Grealish, Calvin Phillips,
there are certain signings one. But Calvin Phillips was how much? Like 40,
I think so 40 million?
45 million pounds.
Which is not that big, right? Like, which I wouldn't include in something like a disaster signing that Pepe, which was done by Arsenal, or I would say like Anthony, which was done by United.
Yeah, but again, if you consider Grealish's stats, it's quite similar. It's just the team is performing, and so it's not, you're not, Pepe especially, Anthony is a separate case altogether. Anthony is probably even worse. But I don't think so Pepe was that bad.
No,
it was bad, but it's Grealish was also at a similar level, maybe a little bit better, not much better. But the team is performing at that time, so it's probably not striking out. But the thing is,
how much considering for Grealish?
100.
And his wages are also like upwards of 300, I think.
Wow. Okay.
So not the best signing for sure.
Not the best signing, but a lot of other ones, right? Like I think something like Julian Alvarez at 14 million was right? I mean, and then selling him like 5-6 times that price, it's crazy. And that too in just 2 years, right? And signing Gundogan so cheap. And the output that Gundogan gave them, it was another master stroke by him. Like
let's do one thing. We can, pick one player each of his era and then maybe see who had the biggest impact for the club.
Great. You start. Which player do you think which was the, according to you, the best signing that he did at Man City?
I think KDB, and I'll tell you the reason why. So KDB started off his
Because
career
he was
at Genk.
ex-Chelsea.
I'll share some context here, which will be very interesting. So
Ferdinand one, no? Fernandinho.
no, no. So basically, KDB started off his career at Genk. Uh, Chelsea played Genk in the Champions League. We had a very good scouting department from the Belgian youth leagues. So we got Hazard, Lukaku, Courtois, all of these guys directly at a very low level at that point of time. And he came to Chelsea, worked under Mourinho, had disagreements about playing time and about the style of training, left for Wolfsburg. At Wolfsburg, he became a mini star. At about, let's say, in a year, he was one of the best Bundesliga players. But at that juncture, I remember when City were in for KDB, there was a lot of criticism because everyone was calling him a Chelsea flop, and including a lot of senior pundits. They came out and said, Ki, why are you spending so much of money on a guy who has been a flop at Chelsea and who has just performed one season at Wolfsburg in the German Bundesliga? And no one, like top pundits, they were all criticizing the amount of fees that was being paid for him. And at that juncture, I think the way KDB has evolved under Pep, I think it's massive. Like, I don't think KDB would have evolved like this under any other manager. Like, Pep has transformed his game completely, and he has become one of the greats of the new Premier League era. So I think this was a big vote of confidence in both Pep as well as Txiki in terms of getting this over the line and then backing Pep for this kind of a signing.
I'll give you one more context, subplot in this. So, as per Fernandinho, he gave an interview and he said this thing live that first Bayern Munich were interested when Pep was in Bayern Munich's manager. They were interested to get KDB in for him. When someone from Bayern Munich asked Pep, should we sign him? And that time Pep rejected him, saying that he's too slow for us. He won't work. And that time, KDB went to Manchester City. So as per Fernandinho, it was all Pep's plan to let KDB go to Manchester City and not go for him during Bayern Munich's reign when he was there. So that's a very interesting idea and some, you can say, like a conspiracy theory by Fernandinho that and Pep knew that he was going to Manchester City after his contract expired at Bayern Munich. So
Interesting.
yeah, this thing I was going to share with you guys.
No, very interesting. And like,
Yeah.
this is the parlance of insider information, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to be working at the club next year. Let me ensure I get the squad that I want.
Yeah, but the good thing about Pep and his signings, particularly about Pep, he has never re-signed a player except Gundogan that he re-signed just now. He has always gotten a fresh squad. He has always got into a new league, new country, and still been able to dominate the league like anything, which is commendable and extremely difficult to do. Gundogan was the first player he re-signed because Barcelona wanted to get rid of him off the wage book. That's why he got Gundogan back. But otherwise, no other player he has re-signed, and that's the legacy. Like when Mourinho joined Chelsea, he had few players who he wanted to come to Chelsea. Every manager will like that, right? Like when Sarri came to Chelsea, he wanted Jorginho. Like some managers want particular players whom they have played with before, but Pep, in his case, that's never been the case, and that's really commendable and a very underappreciated fact about him.
Another very interesting point which came out when you were sharing this anecdote, right? So, one of the biggest responsibilities of a sporting director is to not only sign the best talent out there, but to not overpay for certain talents. So, giving two specific examples in recent years, one is Jorginho, wherein City had lined up a move for Jorginho. Everything was agreed with Napoli. And then because Sarri went to Chelsea, he wanted to go to Chelsea. But at that juncture, I think Napoli had increased the price of Jorginho and City refused to pay that. And
Yes.
that's what allowed them to come to Chelsea. and the other one is, I think, one of the new
Kukurea.
favorites, wherein he was a shoe-in, wherein he wanted to join City, everything was agreed,
Yeah.
and then finally when Graham Potter came in, like afterwards, like I think even then, I think there would be this was during Tuchel.
Yes.
Okay, so I think we wanted that position to be covered, and we went for Cucurella in a big way, like a 63
Brighton being
million.
Brighton, they increased the
Yeah,
price last minute
yeah,
and
yeah, and we had to pay that. And
yes.
at that juncture, City stuck to their guns that we are not going to overpay. And one of the biggest examples of this is Alexis Sanchez.
Alexis Sanchez.
Everything was over the line. Like as a player, he would have fit really well in City's squad. But when they realized that no, this player is not interested just in playing, but he is looking for a higher package, I think they just let him go.
But there are two other examples, UV, which players they missed out on and they really worked out well for the other clubs. Number
Okay.
one will be Virgil van Dijk. I think he was close to being joined. If you see All or Nothing Manchester City, the documentary, Virgil van Dijk was linked to City in a highway. They missed out on him. Liverpool came in, and you know Virgil van Dijk, what kind of figure he is at Liverpool. Second is Declan Rice. Imagine Declan Rice and Rodri playing in the same team. I think it would have been like game set match for the league.
Declan Rice would have been another Calvin Phillips of that team.
But I would honestly say, I don't think so. Both the signings you're mentioning, even Virgil van Dijk, which I remember, was clearly he wanted Liverpool. It was not City pulling out. And similar with Rice. Rice was
but he was
clearly
linked to City. Rahul bhai, if you watch All or Nothing,
linked to City is a separate thing. What UV is saying, there is a player who was ready to come to City. The deal was done. At the last moment, the price was increased or the player's wages were increased and City pulled out. Rice and Virgil van Dijk, they lost the battle to the other team. It was not that they pulled out.
And Rice was for money. Rice, they didn't want to pay so high money.
But
definitely,
Rice priority was always Arsenal.
No.
It was always Arsenal.
He was open to both the clubs.
You can read across, I think so. Rice was clearly quoted by Arsenal from January, and he was set in his mind that he wanted to go.
Arsenal were more aggressive during in pursuing Rice's transfer, but City were also in for him. But when they heard that 95 million pounds and upwards of that, they moved out of the race. That's the story.
So it depends a lot on whether you're paying 90 plus million for a first team player or you're paying 90 million plus for a backup player. So at City, they already have Rodri, right? So of course they wouldn't pay 90 million plus. It doesn't make sense kind of a thing. For Arsenal, it kind of made sense because we needed that player so badly. So it's just a matter of perspective at the end and which club needs it more, basically. So of course, and I agree, they have been very shrewd in the transfer window and letting deals go when it doesn't make sense for them. So, yeah. Rahul, what do you think? Which was the best signing that he made at City?
I was going with that only, rather not the signing, moving out of signings. Like Sanchez, even Harry Maguire. Harry Maguire was highly linked with City before moving to Man United. Again, Man United crossed a threshold which they didn't want to cross. And that is where they have been very smart. Knowing when to move out of a deal, which overall probably helps them keep the atmosphere and keep everything in the way they want.
But Rahul, don't you believe that such players at City could have thrived also?
Agreed,
that
100%.
Environment, the managers' plan for the player, everything plays a much bigger role than their ability also. That's what I believe.
But the thing is, what I want to say is that is why they get the good deals, because they have put it across in the market that we won't be taken for granted. We won't just be pushed around. If there is a value we have in our mind, and we will get that. Otherwise, okay, we'll get someone else.
That's
and in our atmosphere we'll create.
Coming from a United fan who have been used to, overpaying always.
Yeah, definitely, obviously.
And usually they go for players who have a breakout clause, right? Who have a clause wherein there's a fixed amount of money that they have to pay, and then it depends on players which team they want to go to. Right? So, for example, Haaland, right? Of course, a lot of teams wanted, and a lot of teams were willing to pay that much to Borussia for Haaland. It's just that Haaland wanted to go to Man City. So that's another key tactic that he kept using, going for players who had a contract exit clause with other teams. So I think very shrewd overall.
I
On the
think
subject of Haaland again, so I remember this distinctly because Chelsea had signed Timo Werner, who was Bundesliga top scorer for 2 seasons, and he became a huge flop at Chelsea. And when Haaland was moving from Borussia Dortmund to Manchester City, again there was a huge, doubt whether he would, one, be able to adapt to the Premier League, and two, whether City would be able to adapt to Haaland because their tactics were so different than what
yes,
Haaland
yes,
offered. So it's like a great, I would again credit both Txiki and Pep for kind of doing that deal in the way it happened because
yes,
everyone had access to the deal. It was an open secret that his release clause is for a certain amount, and certain amount has to be paid to his management team along with his family.
yes,
And how he integrated, first he got him into the system, and how he integrated into the system was crazy.
yes.
So
Just
if you
Even
could,
imagine.
Bayern Munich were in for him. That's why Lewandowski wanted to leave. Even Bayern Munich were in for him. I think few more clubs were in for him.
a lot
I
of
think
clubs were in.
PSG was one of them. I remember. But
Even United were in for him, or at least
yeah.
United fans thought because
No,
Solskjaer
they had the
really
sign
took
to
him.
sign. Like they had the chance to sign him for 5 million.
There
When
was there was a
Ole,
very yeah there was a very interesting story about it.
yeah,
Ishan, do you know the full story? Then
yeah,
please go on.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Go on, go on.
So Ole Solskjaer was the manager of Molde uh, in Norway, and that time Haaland was playing under him. Although Haaland was not a starter for Molde, he was always a bench player, a squad player for Molde. But Ole saw that spark in him, and that time he called Manchester United, told them that this is a great kid, and all I'm asking for is 5 million. Just sign him, and you will not regret it. But that time, Ed Woodward and the sporting directors thought that 5 million is too much for a not so starting player in Norway. So they backed out of the deal, and unfortunately, it turns out. But I believe such things happen at all the clubs, so it should not be made a big deal. Like even there's a story that even Jude Bellingham was at Old Trafford.
Jude Bellingham though was highly linked.
Yeah,
It
yes,
was before he signed for Dortmund. He
yes.
did a full
But
tour of Old Trafford.
United unfortunately didn't give him assurance of getting first team minutes. That's why he went to Dortmund. That's what I've read.
So
But
two things here. So one on the Haaland deal. First part is completely done. There was one more deal wherein Solskjaer found himself in the United manager's role.
yeah,
Now, when he was there, again, he was having access to Haaland. And at this juncture, Haaland was available for 20 million. And the only problem was that the management team of Haaland wanted United to sign a release clause, saying that if after 2 years a club comes in with a higher value of a certain amount, Haaland would be open to being released. Now, I think this was again a big. So there are two sides of the coin, right? One is that as a big club, I can't be held accountable for the release clause because it creates a issue in my long-term plan. But the second is that if you are getting a player at 20 million and you are able to kind of get him integrated into the team, he may never want to leave. There are still talks that Haaland has a release clause at Manchester City. We don't know
yes,
the
yeah,
actual truth of it, but I think that was again how they missed out on him. And
yeah,
on the subject of Bellingham, I think Bellingham was very clear. At 16, he was touted as the biggest thing in Birmingham City.
yeah,
And he was very clear he wanted to play first team football.
yes,
And if you look at the chronology, Borussia Dortmund were very clear he's going to come in as a first team starter. Real Madrid were very clear at 19 that he is going to be a first team starter. Somehow the United hierarchy did not recognize that he can be a first team starter. So it was very strange.
And the good thing about Jude Bellingham's transfer is that Birmingham City retired his jersey number. They thought that he was that good.
I have a question.
No, but
How
the
do
retirement of a jersey number was due to Birmingham City were going to go into administration if that transfer would not have taken place. And he could have gone on free or something, and he stuck with the team and saved them. So that was also a main reason.
Yeah, could be.
so I have a question. How do any stream or any topic we take ends up being a United bashing at the end?
I
So
don't
Don't
think
you
I
enjoy
don't.
it? Don't you enjoy it? Tell me.
I don't think it's United bashing. I just think if you look at it
You know what I mean.
retrospectively, yeah, well, if you look at it retrospectively, United has been the biggest club in the Premier League era. When I say Premier League era, 1992 onwards, and there are a lot of subplots during this time. Like if you actually go back to 92 to 2003, you find United taking so many great decisions, like signing Cantona from Leeds was a masterstroke. Signing York and Cole as a combination up front was crazy. Then getting Ferdinand from Leeds again was one of the best moves that they have made. Vidic at 6 million was a crazy transfer. So they have made
Movie,
so many good moves.
you भी rhetorical question था यार.
Well, I'm just saying in general.
Even
But
Jude
the
Bellingham was linked to Chelsea also. Lampard says it. Like Jim Fraser had scouted him. They wanted the club to sign, but apparently Chelsea's hierarchy refused to, pay so much for a young player. That's why they backed out.
the Haaland deal that UV is referring to, Solskjaer had a press conference before around December time. This is before he signed for Dortmund. So that time in the press conference, he was asked a question about Haaland, something, and it was pretty clear from his tone and attitude that he was very confident of securing the deal. That time I was following that a lot, so I was also confident we were getting him then. But obviously, the release clause was the obvious reason that we
But
couldn't get him.
we are forgetting the fact that who was Haaland's agent. He could have caused a lot of troubles for the clubs to sign him. Mino Raiola was not a easy nut to crack. So his demands, we all know that it would not have been that easy जितना अपने को लगता है.
Correct.
So
So
again,
unlike,
coming back to the point, who was the best signing? Sorry, Varun, you want to know?
yeah, sorry, quickly on Haaland point. At
Yeah.
same year that Man City signed Haaland, Liverpool signed Darwin Núñez, and for a much higher price,
Yeah.
right? And there were so many comparisons, and so many people were like, Darwin Núñez is going to be
That
better.
Community
this,
Shield
that.
match. That
And the Community Shield match where Darwin Núñez scored, Haaland didn't, and
Haaland
then
missed so many easy chances that
yeah,
match. He was
and then the
bad that
social
match.
media was going crazy. It was, but yeah, let's see.
Only thing I don't think so. Haaland was cheaper than Nunes. It's just the official
Yeah.
value you
Yes,
can say.
yes.
I mean,
But
I mean the
overall,
official value. Yeah, I mean the official value. See, of course,
yeah,
we don't know the inside deals or how
Commissions
much,
and
how much City pay to the family, etc. We don't know about all those things, right?
I think FIFA has come up with a rule that not more than 10% or something should be paid towards commission towards the agents or something after this Haaland's transfer. I think that was the precedent that they didn't want to set. So there's a fixed that any club can't pay more than 10% or something to the agent.
Got it.
But again, I'm not too sure. So let's check it before we release such news. But again, coming back to the point, who's been the best transfer for City? I think it's Erling Haaland for me. I think City were always successful in winning Premier Leagues, but I think Haaland was the solution on why they needed him to win the Champions League. First season, he comes in, he scores 50 goals, they win the Champions League. And I think that goal scoring striker which Arsenal are missing today, if they can get someone like an Haaland, they will be transformed to another team. So Arsenal are the team which City were before Haaland, I believe, right now. Although City won without Haaland also, they won the league. But I think to win the Champions League, to be the best in the world, you need an out and out striker who will give you 30, 40 goals a season. And there are very few players right now who are of that pedigree. Probably City were trying to sign Harry Kane a season before they signed Haaland, and Daniel Levy quoted them a price which they didn't want to pay. I think it was around 120 million pounds or something stupid. And 1 year later, they didn't go for Harry Kane again, and then they went for Haaland. So many events that जो नहीं होता उसके बाद क्या हो जाता है, then we don't know. And then Haaland came in, scored 50 goals. Everyone had doubts. I remember clearly during that Community Shield match, he missed 3 easy chances, which were all goals. If today's Haaland was playing that back then, but he missed easy chances. Again, people were, pessimistic on his move. He's come from Germany. Will he be able to adapt in Premier League? Everyone had those doubts. But once he settled in, and then there was no looking back. So again, I always think that City have always been good in winning Premier League and league because they are the best team. So any best team will always win the league because it's over a longer period of time, 38 games. But in a knockout format like Champions League, you need people who can kill the game then and there. And that for that you need strikers. And I think Haaland had provided them with which before Aguero, after Aguero they didn't have a out and out striker. So he is the best replacement to Aguero, I believe.
But just imagine Aguero and Haaland, two world-class strikers. But I think so, two completely different profiles.
Yes.
And
yes.
that is where UV is correct, that how beautifully they've adapted their game to both the strikers is something
again,
which
that's
has
why
to be
Rahul, I
appreciated.
was telling you that Harry Maguire could have been good at Manchester City. We don't know.
No denying that. But what my point was that sticking to a value eventually helps you.
Not overpaying. In the longer run, it definitely helps because once you keep overpaying for players and their wages, and it always comes to bite you again. I think City have been not only good at buying players but also at selling players. They have been amazing at doing that. Like they sold Riyad Mahrez for like 30 odd million euros recently. They sold Julian Alvarez for the record transfer fee of their club.
Yeah.
So I think they're good at selling also. So that's a very.
Ishan, you look at City's last 15 signings under the age of 21. There are unknown players from the City Academy who get sold for 15 million.
Yes. A City Academy, again, I think we always talk about signings, but sporting director must be working on the academy as well. And the amount of talent that the City Academy has produced, we all know Chelsea are beneficiary of so many players of that category. So when Txiki has signed in 2012, I think the work would have started back then. And today they are reaping the rewards, right? I think it takes a good decade for any academy to produce results. Phil Foden, Cole Palmer, Jadon Sancho, Brahim Diaz, Tosin, all these are products of City Academy. Even Michael Olise, for a fact, was at City Academy. So I believe getting a player like Foden and Rico Lewis for free because of the academy, they are like, that talent is alone worth like 150 million pounds today.
But I think so. See, the academy part again is due to the ambition of the owner. See, the sporting director has a role to play, but the ambition of the owner, the clarity,
definitely,
and the investment.
Rahul,
just imagine Darren Fletcher is a technical director of Man United, but both his sons were in City's academy. Can you imagine what a contrast that is?
I didn't know this.
So that
I didn't know this.
We signed them. We signed them 2 years back, or 2 years back from the City Academy.
Okay.
So it's a thing that their infrastructure must be so different and so better.
But if Rahul, by owner's vision is not there, getting a guy like Txiki is not possible.
Agreed.
Only if owner's vision is there to build something so huge, a guy like Txiki will come in. That's why. But implementing that to a greater level execution is the toughest part. We all know. Like, जो आज उनको free में players मिल रहे because of academy, it's unreal. Like, even James Trafford, the goalkeeper with Burnley, he's also a big talent. Unfortunately, Burnley got relegated. But there are so many good players coming from the City Academy, I think. So again, like thanks to Txiki for.
So on the subject of Haaland, if you look at the transition, so Aguero, when he was leaving City, and Pep in particular came out and said, you can't replace Aguero.
Yeah.
And during that next season, first they tried to go for Ronaldo. And Ronaldo at the last moment went to United. And then they decided, okay, we don't want to go for another profile. Next season, they spent the entire summer chasing Kane, offer after offer. Levy kept on denying them.
No, I think when Ronaldo didn't sign, that very season, Kane was linked to him.
Yeah.
Grealish was signed. Signed. They gave him the number 10 or something. And then Kane was before him. Kane, he couldn't join. And then Ronaldo also didn't join. And that's how they went. And after one season later, Haaland was signed. After Grealish.
My bad.
Yeah.
Got it.
So given that you guys have already mentioned Haaland and KDB, I think couple of very, very important signings were Fernandinho and followed by Rodri. That midfield engine that he has kept going, which is so important for any team in the Premier League. I think those two signings were so important for Man City.
Gundogan for that case, midfield again,
Yeah,
if you're talking
Gundogan
about.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like you can see the teams around them, right? All they are all the time struggling for signing that one holding midfielder who can do the job for them, right? Like having consistently a very very world class holding midfielder is that all the teams are struggling for that,
Yes.
right? Arsenal recently signed Declan Rice, but before that there was no good player in that role, right? I think United has been struggling for the same role as well. Chelsea has been struggling in that same role. Liverpool had a good player for 3-4 years, but then again, like it was now again to replace an entire midfield has been a task for them. They have been able to achieve it in certain way, but of course not world class players, right? Like to the caliber of Rodri or Fernandinho, I would say. So again, like I think those two midfield signings were crazy, and like
One last point I have, like, which will define the class of Txiki and Pep and whoever, the entire system of Manchester City, is how many players have left City and have been the better version of themselves. Only one comes to our mind is Cole Palmer, which happened recently. But so many players have left City, and I don't think they were better than what they were at City. Gabriel Jesus left, again he's struggling. Raheem Sterling left, again he's struggling. Zinchenko left. There were so many players who have, you know, like who were so good at City, and then unfortunately they couldn't replicate the form that they had over there. Only player comes to our mind is Cole Palmer, although he was very young, so not the right example. But I don't think any other player who played at City and has been better than what he was at City. So kudos to the system, how he adapts the player, like everything. Like
yeah,
even
like when to
Gundogan
go
left.
aggressive, like when to go
Gundogan left.
aggressive and when to draw the line, right? That has been like the key feature of how they have managed their signings in the transfer market.
Another
Like,
couple of key signings, if you look at it. So one particular which comes to mind is Edison. Because before Edison, the entire goalkeeper role was very different.
Yes, yes.
And suddenly you have someone who starts playing with his feet, someone who's a great distributor of the ball, someone who wants more pressure inside the box from the opposition, and he's able to beat the press himself along with his defenders. So I think that changed the role completely. And for a long time, City were, like Ishan mentioned, that I think they missed out on Virgil van Dijk. And the perfect replacement which they got was Ruben Diaz.
Yeah.
I think without Diaz, you can't see this City unit being as solid as it is today.
Another player I forgot to mention was Leroy Sané. He was a star at City. He went to Bayern Munich and he's not been able to convert that performance.
See, on the Edison,
I think Sane is doing decently well, right?
No,
No?
I don't
he's not
know.
the starter though over there, right?
He's not even a starter today, but even though like he has not lived up to the expectation with which he was signed for.
Yeah,
on the
Rahul.
Edison point, I'll say that is where City are really good at, right? They did a mistake with Bravo, and rather than dragging it on, they realized it, and the next season they fixed it with Edison. Also, when Pep joined in, the fullbacks were the problem, and they replaced the fullbacks completely in one season, right? They bought 3 or 4 fullbacks and let go of all their fullbacks. So that's the way you move, and that's where the
Yeah,
sporting director has really played a great role.
yeah,
Exactly, right. When to be aggressive and when to draw the line. Correct.
yes.
Like there are times when you need to be really, really aggressive for the player that you actually want, versus, as you guys said, like learning to say no. So I think that's been a key feature. Great. Any last comments, guys?
Not for me.
Great. So let's wrap it up here. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hit the like button, share, subscribe, and do drop us your comments as to what you guys think about the sporting director at Man City, and do they think they'll be successful in replacing him going forward? See you in the next video, guys.